3 months ago, Where Winds Meet launched to a 6 out of 10 from IGN. And the reason, I kid you not, is because the game did too much. Their exact critique was that the game's attempt to shove so many different things into one experience ensured that none of them reached their full potential. It sounds smart. It sounds reasonable. It's the kind of thing you can say about literally any ambitious project to make yourself look insightful. It's the intellectual equivalent of looking at a buffet and saying, yes, this meal has too many ingredients. But look at what they actually complained about. Buff management, wall of text gear systems, spreadsheet progression, activity bloat, DPS checks, the endgame grind. Those aren't design flaws. Those are MMO systems. And here's the kicker. Most of those aren't even structural failures. They're tuning issues. They are the kind of thing that evaporates the moment you add the right infrastructure, which is exactly what version 1.2 is about to demonstrate. See, IGN reviewed this game through a narrow action RPG lens. They were comparing it to Sekiro, Devil May Cry, or Ninja Gaiden. They weren't evaluating a next-generation, hybrid live service world built to evolve over years. They were judging it like a finished toy you play for a weekend and put on a shelf. 3 months later, version 1.2 is here. NetEase didn't write a tweet to explain themselves. They didn't beg for nuance from the Western press. They didn't feel the need to justify their vision. They just shipped. Another patch, another layer of infrastructure, another receipt showing that Western gaming journalism isn't just out of touch. It's fundamentally unequipped to review the next generation of global game design. But enough about them. Let's look at what version 1.2 actually brings, and more importantly, the foundations this game is laying down. You know that feeling when you log into a game after a major patch? It's a very specific brand of anxiety, a volatile cocktail of excitement and pure dread. You're asking the same 3 questions. What's new? What changed? And did they just nerf my entire build into the dirt? I logged into Where Winds Meet after 1.2, expecting the usual live service checklist. A new dungeon, a bit of story, maybe a fresh world boss to get absolutely destroyed by. And sure, those were there. But NetEase shipped something else, something I didn't expect. It wasn't just a change to the world itself, though, for the record, as a lot of people have noticed, the graphics somehow look even more crisp now. I'll circle back to that later. No, the real shift was in how we interact with the world. It was as if someone had flipped a switch, and for the first time, the entire blueprint became visible. Before 1.2, the game felt scattered. You had combat systems here, professions over there, and social hubs hiding in the corners. It all worked, but it felt fragmented. There was no big picture, just a massive, intimidating pile of stuff. Then I opened the exploration book, and boom. The entire progression map was laid out in front of me. Suddenly, you could see exactly how every single system connects to the next. Here is the vital distinction. Content is what you do. Infrastructure is what makes it matter. You can farm dungeons until your eyes bleed, and God knows people do. But you should never underestimate the tools that organize that grind. While I'm obviously excited for new content, I'm even more invested in the infrastructural upgrades. This is the substrate. It is the structural layer that allows every other system to compound and grow instead of just expiring. Beyond the new content and the infrastructure, this patch also includes the maintenance layer, a mountain of fixes, some visible and some buried deep in the code. We're going to cover all 3 of these layers now, starting with my absolute favorite addition, the exploration menu. Now, I know you probably didn't click on a video about a massive, next-gen open-world epic to hear me geeking out over a UI element. But hear me out. Because this specific menu solves a problem so universal, most of us have just accepted it as an unavoidable personality trait of the entire live service genre. Most games in this space, where wins meet included, suffer from massive content bloat and impenetrable progression. This is exactly what IGN was critiquing. Logically, there are only two ways to fix this. You can take the WoW route and gut the depth until you're left with a boring one-button rotation, or you can do what this patch does. It is such a simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful. The big picture. This menu provides a bird's-eye view of every progression path, currency, and energy system in one interactive UI. It tells you exactly what to prioritize for character power, where to find your upgrades, and what you need to do so your weekly currencies don't overflow. It's not even fully fleshed out yet, but we're already seeing tabs for Jianghu collectibles and quest suggestions for the completionists. For the WoW veterans watching, this is essentially a professional, dev-integrated version of the All the Things add-on, minus the clunky, rudimentary UI. Here is why this is actually huge. Where wins meet is wide, it's deep, and it is inherently complex. But as gamers, we shouldn't fear complexity. I'd take a dense, ambitious world over a shallow one with nothing to do any day of the week. IGN looked at this density and saw a mechanical failure. This patch proves how narrow that perspective was. They mistook information failure for bloat. In economics, information failure happens when one party doesn't have the data they need to make an optimal decision. In gaming, that manifests as decision paralysis. It's not the amount of stuff that causes anxiety. It's the uncertainty. It's the feeling that you're wasting your time or missing a crucial step. Having this bird's-eye view is psychologically soothing. It turns a chaotic pile of stuff into a legible checklist. It says, here is the world. Choose what you want to chip away at today. Uncertainty is what causes anxiety. Complexity, when made legible, is just potential. But the architecture doesn't stop at making the game more playable for the individual. Once you built the infrastructure to manage the grind, you need the infrastructure to manage, well, your social circle. Which brings us to the most unhinged addition from the January 9th update: joint punishment. Now, I originally thought this was some heavy-handed guild system, but it's actually much funnier. It's light-hearted, high-tier trolling. If you're a repeat offender or a frequent escape artist, the law stops looking for just you. It starts looking for your inner circle, your partners, sworn cohorts, and friends with an intimacy score of 16,000 or higher. But here is the catch. NetEase isn't just throwing them in a cell. The implicated friend gets a confirmation prompt. It is essentially a notification that asks, "Your friend messed up. Are you a real one? Do you want to rot in jail with them?" It's the ultimate friendship test. If they say yes, you both get jailed together. To get out early, you can activate a joint parade, where you both face public admonishment in matching prison outfits. The more friends you convince to join your walk of shame, the faster your sentence drops. This isn't the only social lever they've pulled. The irony only deepens when you look at the rest of the community interaction. We're getting guild battles with a dedicated preseason, a Swallow's Bond system that actually incentivizes veterans to guide fledgling new players, and an overhaul to the assist signposts. Now, the signposts are a perfect example of NetEase listening. In the past, trolls would drop signposts right on top of collectibles to force you into a menu. It was peak Jianghu chaos. But now, you have to hold the button to open them, and they've added assist signpost rankings. They've turned a tool for trolling into an incentive for high-quality community help. And for the fashion hunters, there is the photo mode upgrade. Most MMOs don't even have a photo mode, let alone one with multi-lighting effects, 3 adjustable light sources, 4K resolution, and a dedicated silhouette mode. This isn't just a screenshot button. This is a professional studio. It's an in-game Instagram, the infrastructure for vanity. It's actually hilarious when you think about it. Where Winds Meet has more aggressive social infrastructure than most traditional MMOs. Yet people will still insist this is a single-player game with some online bits. Looking at you, IGN. Let's finally get into the actual stuff to do. I realize that for most people, this is the main event, but the fact that it took me this long to get here tells you everything you need to know about my priorities. If you've spent any time on this channel, you've probably realized I have a borderline obsession with analyzing infrastructure and systemic design. It's a habit that probably stems from my economics background. And to be blunt, in terms of raw volume, this update is on the leaner side. If the Chinese server's roadmap is any indication, this January cycle is actually the driest month of 2026. But dry here is strategic. NetEase is essentially clearing the table and installing the pipes today so they can handle the content fire hose tomorrow. But what is here is exceptionally high quality. We are finally getting access to the 9 Mortal Ways base, the underground ghost-like market, on January 23rd. Rejoice, all you who decided to join the Rats. They are my current sect too, and it feels good to finally be home. The base is framed as a subculture of deception, where you learn to navigate the city's top 10 scams to earn rewards like the Iron Rice Bowl headgear. And the real crown jewel? The final chapter of the Kai Feng campaign. Gambit Beneath the Shimmer. I just finished it, no spoilers, but it is an absolute "how is this game free" moment. The production value is, frankly, absurd. Finally, let's look at the maintenance, the final layer of the 1.2 architecture. Part of the reason the content feels light is that the developers clearly prioritized the unseen foundation. We're talking over 1,000 quality-of-life fixes introduced in a single patch. These might not be flashy, but they are the heartbeat of a game's long-term survival. Some of these are immediately tangible. Auto-recycle rules, 7-day gear retrieval, build auto-switching, and boss dummies for the training grounds. All of it is incredibly helpful. I, and plenty of others in the community, have also noticed a significant leap in fidelity, specifically a major reduction in pop-in. This was easily one of the game's most glaring visual flaws, but now, it's no exaggeration to say these graphics outclass most $70 AAA titles on the market. Thank the whales, I guess. But what this represents is a signal NetEase isn't broadcasting out loud. This massive quality-of-life dump is proof of intent. They aren't just maintaining a game. They are building a long-term ecosystem. They are installing the infrastructure required to compete with every other live service that wants to steal your weekend. And we're here for it. More and more, I find myself trusting NetEase as a developer. To be fair, I was already biased. I've sunk thousands of hours into Marvel Rivals since launch. It's hard not to have an affinity for a studio that keeps dropping banger after banger. This patch just cements that trust. NetEase understands something the old guard of Western gaming has forgotten. MMOs aren't fun because of rigid definitions. They're fun because of the friction and the community. Action RPGs don't have to follow an ossified blueprint. A social hub doesn't have to be a boring checklist. Just because a game doesn't fit a 20-year-old definition of an MMO doesn't mean it can't deliver that experience. They are designing for the sensation of being in a world, not a dinosaur's checklist. Western gaming journalists are still judging these experiences based on prehistoric design philosophies. It's still hilarious to me that this game was reviewed as a single-player action RPG with problems that could be fixed in one patch. The improvements will keep coming. The world will keep expanding. And as long as NetEase keeps producing content of this caliber, we'll be here to analyze it. If you want more Where Winds Meet coverage and systemic analysis, consider subbing and hitting that like button. It helps the channel more than you think. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.